Late last week, DC Comics announced two new distributors would be added to help get comics back into shops. The reaction from retailers has been mixed. Why is that? Shouldn't retailers be glad that comics are getting back into shops? Well, it's a bit more complicated than that, and I'm going to try and walk through it with you. Hey everybody, this is Perch. Last week, DC Comics basically announced two new distributors that are tied to Midtown Comics and DCBS, Discount Comic Book Service. And the purpose is basically that Diamond Comics is frozen to some extent. They can't operate their business due to the COVID restrictions. And there's other parts of their infrastructure that are blocked from operations. And in addition to that, there is cash flow problems at Diamond. They were not able to pay their publishers as planned. They're having to roll out a slower than expected payment plan. They had to furlough a large number of their staff. And so there's some questions about Diamond's long-term viability. Well, anyone who's in the comic industry would take a look at that and say it's time to start thinking of a plan B, or at least some level of backup plan, and fast. We can't afford to have a 3 to 6 month delay in getting new comics shipping back out. And on top of that, just having a distributor pop up out of nowhere to handle the kind of the details, the complexity of the comic book industry is not simple. It's a lot of product. It's product at a different format than a lot of distributors are used to. It's a lot of very small businesses in most cases that are handling that product. So it's not just trivial to come in and say, okay, I'm going to be a comic distributor now. So it makes sense that there was a backup plan to be found. And what DC did was the pragmatic thing that I think, again, if you're looking at this from the outside, you would say you go to people who already have some experience in the industry, who have some of the infrastructure set up. And Midtown and DCBS had that infrastructure. Ship comics today, understand what it takes, has a national footprint with some international capabilities, and it makes sense to go there. However, reaction from retailers and some retailers. Here's where I want to scold a little bit some of the other videos who are, the announcers basically going, oh, here's another example. The retailers trying to hold back the industry. We all as people have to start thinking about the things are not black and white. It's not all retailers. It's some retailers. And in general, the people who are speaking out against it are the same people who spoke out against digital and against everything else. They are certainly not representative of the larger comic book industry. There is a mix. And in any business of all kinds, from medicine to technology to manufacturing to construction, there are different views of how the business should be run. And so it's very childish and stupid to basically bubble the comments from, say, 6-8 people into the entire industry. If you don't have the mental faculties to understand that nuance, not really a nuance, it's a pretty glaring fact of life, then maybe you shouldn't be doing videos or passing on information in the first place because you do not know what you're talking about. Regardless, some retailers are happy, some retailers are not. Now, for those that are not, why? Well, a variety of reasons. The biggest and most logical one is that the two new distributors in many ways compete with comic shops. Midtown Comics competes with other shops for people's business. DCBS competes with back issues and other products. So the idea of we're going to hand over distribution from one place to another to a competitor is something that raises eyebrows and should be a little bit of alarm. And I think that's a very legitimate concern and a question that's going to need to be answered by DC and by these two new entities. How are they going to juggle their business so preferential treatment doesn't allow the big companies to get bigger and basically screw the smaller companies? What things are in place to keep these guys from not holding back titles, getting access to the sales records of the market? A lot of that information is very proprietary, and that's something that people should be concerned about. But there's other things that, Phil Boyle of Florida-based retailer chain Coliseum of Comics said, this is the most damaging and horrible decision DC could have made. No, Phil Boyle, that is stupid. The most damaging thing they could have done was just to sit back and hope that everything returns to normal when we do not know if Diamond is financially viable, when comics will be able to produce. That's the most damaging and horrible decision DC could have ever made. The irresponsibility of that statement is ridiculous. It shows kind of where your head's at and how you think and kind of the insecurity of your business. The other piece, so some other people, Joe Field of Concord, California, laid out some issues with the plan. I think he had a measured approach. A lot isn't known yet. That's true. A lot hasn't been announced yet. And over the next 2 weeks, we're going to have to understand a lot. He's saying a lot of being asked of retailers when we're very vulnerable. That's true. There is more work that's going to be put on the retailer's plate where they're going to have to grapple with multiple distribution forms, filling out things in a very short order. It does have the potential for chaos. It does have the potential for a lot of things to fall through the gaps. On the other hand, it's unclear how the world can be much different. We don't know a lot of things. We don't know when states are going to open back up again. We still have the governors and the president making claims that are kind of all over the map. Many people may remember it was less than 30 days ago that Governor Newsom said that 60 to 80% of the state was going to be infected, and they were looking at 250,000 to 2 million deaths in California. In California, not the U.S. Clearly, that's and again, maybe that quote's been misinterpreted, but that's what the news media was publishing. I want to put that caveat out there. A lot of wild statements are changing, and the models are shifting, and it's all politicized now, red states versus blue states. We don't know when things are opening up. So the idea that DC Comics would know kind of all the details of how this is going to work, we're all going to have to deal with some ambiguity. That is true. DC is saying products still available for Diamond, so people can continue to do there. But the other, this is also, to me, strikes me as a very irresponsible and kind of shrill feedback. This is Mark Nathan from Cards, Comics, and Collectibles, Maryland. And he said, DC's Comics stopped being the direct market's favorite publisher when they began the Walmart deal. So right immediately, we're digging up an old grudge, and a stupid grudge. I think it's been well proven now with numbers and financials that the Walmart deal encouraged sales and helped. There's no stat anybody can point to say that it hurt. There's lots of stats that people can point to saying the increased distribution is helpful. That kind of perspective is what's killing the comic industry. Full stop. This is just more of the same. Public safety for our extended family should be our first thought, not selling the next issue of Batman. Well, yeah, no kidding. Don't open your shop. If you're worried about the safety of your people, then don't open your shop. Don't put people in the shop. The idea that somehow that's not your responsibility, it's DC's responsibility, so DC should not come up with a plan in order to distribute comics because of your employees' safety is insane. I'm sorry, that's just does not make any sense whatsoever. You control your output. You can stick with Diamond. You can order comics. You can do a mail order. You can open your doors. You do what the law tells you, what the conditions in your state are in. It's irresponsible to believe that DC Comics is going to take responsibility for whether you have your employees come into work or not. Their goal is to offer comics that you can buy. That is their purpose. That is what they are intended to do. So that's a very goofy statement, and there's a lot of projection going on there. Then it gets worse. It goes, first of all, there's an analogy to Heroes World in the 90s. We'll get to that in a second. But then it says, clearly DC did not learn from history, nor do they seem to care for the orders of my state or governor. Do they believe my shutdown is not for the safety of my great state of Maryland, or do they simply not care? Their actions suggest the worst of their motives. I will not be signing up for this. I'll wait for Diamond to reopen. A company run by people who love comics, its history, and its passionate fans. There will be a time for the next issue of Batman, and it will be needed then, not when its release puts people's future in danger. What? I'm sorry, but that's asinine. Okay, if your state has a lot of problems, if your region has a lot of viral spread and issues, if you cannot ensure the safety of your employees, your customers, do not open. Don't project that onto DC. That is so dumb. And yes, wait for Diamond to reopen. Do what you want. But by all means, don't sit there and say, I'm going to wait and not get any new comics, and I'm going to let Diamond reopen if they can. And because, and true, he's right. There are a lot of people at Diamond who are passionate comic fans. The owner loves comics, has a comics museum, has donated time, money, and life to comics. Much respect to Jeppy, but that doesn't mean your customers want comics. If you're unable to provide them safely, do not. It's just this idea that DC, by offering an alternative plan, is endangering lives is the most hysterical, nonsensical bullshit that I've heard this weekend. That's insane. And please, you cannot say, okay, I'm going to sit and I'm just going to wait and I'm going to have no comics and I'm just not going to open and everything else. And maybe all my competitors will, and they'll offer comics. And then I'm going to complain that it was DC who ruined my business because of Walmart and digital. This stuff makes me insane. Of course, others do like the plan. There are many said that Jen Haynes in Ontario said that this is another option. I mean, they're looking at it. This is the most common sense answer yet. Look, DC is trying hard to get us our books. I don't think we have time for all this right now in the industry. We don't need drama. We need to come together as an industry. We need to build each other up, not tear each other down. Yeah, it's a distribution option. You don't have to take it. One of the nasty things about a monopoly in comics is that with Diamond, you don't have a choice. That's all you got. There's one distributor. And when you got one distributor, you're playing by that person's rules. And I'll tell you, a lot of comic shops, well, I think there's a lot of great things about Diamond. There are people who love comics, everything else. There are also a lot of retailers who have been afraid to complain about damaged product because their reps have told them, don't make too much noise or we may drop you. And if they drop you, you have no comic shop. That's not healthy. Now, to be fair to Diamond, some of those reps who have said things like that have gotten fired because that is definitely not how it's supposed to be, and that goes against the company's rules. But when you have a monopoly, you get a lot of people silently in fear because they have no other choice. Retailer Ryan Higgins of Sunnyvale, this is Comic Conspiracy, did say, look, this is, this is probably the best situation we could have hoped for, short of Diamond shipping books at the same time. Yeah, it would have been better if Diamond could have opened up and we would have had these multiple sources. It would have been better if there was a clear answer out today over what how they're going to handle this competitive practice. All those things would have been better. But we are dealing with uncertain times, and people are trying to do the best they can. I praise what DC has done. Did they find an ideal solution? No. Did they find the best solution that as quickly as possible? Again, I'm not in their boardroom. I'm not there. I don't know if there was a better option on the table. But this one, I have to give them credit. They moved fast. People like Scott Snyder, Tom King, others did say, we're working hard. And sure enough, they were working hard. They delivered on that promise, and I give them some credit there. I know, and all of you should take from this isn't the end of the plan. There's going to be lots of changes, lots of adaptions, lots of things to be worked out. Absolutely. It's not going to stay here and stick here. But comic retailers should feel pleased, and they should feel thankful that a comic publisher is trying hard to get them their product, and is trying hard to make sure that there's choice, and is trying hard to make sure that nobody's going to be forced to just sit and wait and hope that business goes okay, that stimulus checks come out, that business just magically returns to normal. They are being proactive and trying to do something. And to that, I say thank you to DC. And to some of these retailers, again, the names who are very critical of this are the exact same names who blasted DC for their digital plan, that blasted DC for their Walmart plan, that for whatever reason seem to get really quiet when the topic of Marvel's 40 variants come up. But, if you're a business owner, you need to operate like a business. And you need to adapt to the times. You need to shuffle your distribution and your plans and everything else. And to get this bent out of shape it's insanity. And you will hurt your business. You will lose it. Phil Boyle, who runs Coliseum of Comics, obviously a very large chain down in Florida. Put up or shut up. That's it. If you have a better plan, bring it. Some of the people who are supporting the Comic Hub plan, that was a absolutely ridiculous plan that had no hope of going anywhere, are complaining about this. Bring a actual plan. But sitting back and refusing any evolution of this comic business will put you out of business. And a couple of these folks have garnered enough kind of finances and stability to their kind of mid-sized comic market to where they, maybe they don't care as much. But I guarantee you, a lot of comic shops that live month to month, they want to see product out. They're trying to manage their business and adapt to change. They're not just going to let this sail into the sunset until they die. And that's how some of this stuff looks. What do you think? Good plan, bad plan? What do you think of some of this? Again, there are retailers that are happy. There are retailers that are unhappy. There's all different mixes here. Retailers and comics tend to be a little bit slower to want to adapt to change. But, that's the reality of business. You adapt or you die. What do you think? Leave your comment below. Like, subscribe, share with a friend. Let me know what you think here. Follow me on Twitter at Comic Perch. Thanks for listening.